All right, first thing is you're gonna get a ball of clay and you're gonna want to pull off a small piece of it to the side there because we're gonna add a little bit to our pinch pot, okay? So you're gonna roll it up and try to get it kind of nice and even. And you're going to start by holding it in your palm and just poking and pushing just a little bit with your thumb. So this is called a pinch pot because you pinch to form the pot itself. So notice how I'm turning the clay in my hand and I'm pushing down just a tiny bit at a time. You don't want to push down too much too quickly or else the clay starts to crack too big. Also, you want to make sure that you're working quickly with clay. You do not want to spend a lot of time playing with it beforehand because the more time that the clay is exposed to your hands and exposed to the air, the more it dries out and becomes harder to work with. All right, so now I'm holding it in both hands and I'm kind of pinching the sides. And notice again, like the big thing you want to focus on is just doing little pinches, not squeezing too much in one area, because we want to try to make the sides of this pinch pot nice and consistent. So the same thickness down here at the bottom as it is on the sides. And you're going to notice there will be some little cracks as you're forming it. Just try to smooth over them as you go. Okay. Now, once I've got a nice smooth shape, the next goal is going to be to smooth out the pot itself. And then we're going to add a little something to it. Okay, so now I've got a pretty nice little form here. I'm going to get a little water to dampen the edges and make it nice and smooth. Okay, so I've got just a little cup of water here and I'm just gonna dip the my finger in the water and just kind of dampen the edge of the surface here to try to smooth it out. Now with a pinch pot, you want to make sure you're not adding too much water because the clay will become too soft and flop. Okay, so now I've got a nice shape. And it's pretty smooth on the outside here. I'm gonna add just a little water here on the surface. Get it nice and smooth. Okay. Now, the next thing is we want to add something else to our pinch pot. You could add something on the outside if you want to, or you could add something here in the middle. Now, for example, one thing that could be fun, you could think about if you want to make this as a gift for somebody, you could, for example, put like their initials in it. So you could roll little coils like this and cut them. To make the letters of the person's name. Oh, there we have an M. So I could then attach that in the inside of this. So when you go to attach something, you have to scratch up the surface of the clay on both sides. So scratch up the bottom of this thing and scratch up the top of this to attach it. So I would scratch like this and then take my little letter, oops, and place it in there and add water in between. I think also it would be really fun to make a little creature. I'm gonna make a little fish. So I'm gonna flatten this out, add a little water. Okay. So you could turn it into a little fish that goes inside of the pot. Maybe I'll make a couple. Or if you just want to make a little heart or a leaf or a bird. Okay, so I'm scratching up the bottom of this. This is called scoring. And then adding water is slipping. So we'll add a little water there. And if we don't do this, then the clay falls apart when it dries. Okay. Maybe I'll add a little fin on there. Okay, another option could be to, like, let's see, if you want to make something for your dad and he really loves basketball, you could flatten this out and carve the lines of a basketball like that. Score and slip and add that to the middle. Okay, and another option could be to flatten this out, and then we can use texture too. So add a little water to this. Okay, I'm gonna press the texture plate on top of this. Cool. So I've got a nice texture that shows, and then I could turn it into, say, a heart. Okay, very gently up. Score and slip, and I'll attach that in there. Okay, and then these little wooden tools work really nice for smoothing out the surface between your two pieces of clay. You want to make sure that that's nice and smooth. Okay, then last step will be just flip it over and very carefully put your first name and your last name. Okay. Then we are gonna set these to dry And then we will fire them once they're totally dry, and then we will glaze them. And they'll be lovely and shiny.